How many neutrons does this atom have if its mass is a really small number in grams? I'll admit, this is a really confusing problem. But when in doubt, let's go back to the basics. Here are the subatomic particles: protons, electrons, and neutrons. Notice how a proton and a neutron weigh exactly one atomic mass unit, but an electron's mass is so tiny that we treat it as if it were zero. The mass of our atom of interest is a number, not in AMUs, but instead given to us in grams, 2.656 times 10 to the negative 23 grams. So that's really confusing. But what is fairly straightforward is the fact that the sum of all the protons, neutrons, and electrons in this atom must add up to the total mass, 2.656 times 10 to the negative 23 grams. Even more simple, the total mass is simply the mass of all the protons and neutrons because remember, an electron's mass is negligible, so we just ignore it. But that still doesn't solve the issue of the fact that we're given a mass in grams, but the masses of protons and neutrons are 1 AMU. Thus, we must convert between atomic mass units and grams. But what in the world does that even mean? Well, analogously, that's just like saying if I have a 1.5 foot chain composed of 1-inch blocks, we need to figure out how many 1-inch blocks reach that length. Well, that would be 18 1-inch blocks because 1.5 feet is the same thing as 18 inches. They are equal distances. In other words, we started from a certain distance in feet and then converted it into an equivalent distance in inches. The fraction we multiply by is a form of 1, because if 12 inches equals 1 foot, then the top and the bottom are equal. It's as if it were 3 divided by 3, 4 divided by 4, etc. That fraction is 1, and multiplying anything by 1 doesn't change the value, only it can change the form, here from feet into inches. That's why 1.5 feet and 18 inches are equal to each other. They're the same length. For a problem of interest, we need to convert between two different units of mass as opposed to length. We have a total mass in grams, and it's composed of a bunch of 1 AMU building blocks, aka protons and neutrons. Just like how we converted from 1.5 feet to 18 inches to figure out that there were 18 1-inch blocks, we have to figure out what terms our top and bottom are of our fraction of 1. For length, it was 12 inches equals 1 foot. For mass, it's that one atomic mass unit equals 1.660 times 10 to the negative 24 grams. Very simply, we plug this into our calculator, and we get that the total mass of our element is 16 AMUs. But how does that help us? Well, it helps a lot because that means that there are a total of 16 protons and neutrons, not 16 each, 16 total. But the question of interest is how many neutrons specifically. We have 16 protons and neutrons total because they each weigh 1 AMU and there are 16 AMU total. However, for each of these answer scenarios, 16 AMUs is the result because 8 plus 8 is 16, 9 plus 7 is 16, and 10 plus 6 is 16. So we're at a deadlock here as they all seem like equally valid options. However, there is a crucial piece of information that we've ignored this entire time, and it is the key to discovering the correct answer. And very simply, it's the fact that our element is specifically an atom. But what is an atom, and how can we use this information to figure this out? Well, an atom is a type of element where the number of protons and electrons are equal. But we just talked about how we don't know how many protons there are. However, we do know how many electrons there are because we can literally count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 electrons total. And by extension, if we have an atom in which there is an equal number of protons and electrons, there must also be 8 protons. Therefore, there must be 8 neutrons as well, because neutrons plus protons has to add up to 16, and 8 plus 8 equals 16. So A is our final answer, and we found this out with this mass in grams, these 8 electrons, and the fact that this is an atom. This question, however, uses charge to figure out which element it is in the first place. Video's on your screen and in the description. Check it out.